Most people imagine someone with a high IQ as a calm genius who breezes through life with effortless clarity, someone who always has the answer, never doubts themselves, and never gets stuck in loops of confusion or second-guessing. But that image is mostly fiction. For many high IQ people, thinking isn't something they turn on when needed. It's their default state. Their mind is always active, always processing, always searching for patterns. And that fundamentally changes how they experience the world. A high IQ doesn't just mean you're better at thinking. It means your brain thinks more often, more intensely, and with less ability to shut itself off. In cognitive psychology, this connects to cognitive load, the amount of mental effort constantly running in working memory. We're building a platform to help people understand themselves so they can stop fighting who they are and start building a life that actually fits. No fake motivation, just insights from Jordan Peterson and other psychologists, broken down into ideas that actually make you stronger. If this resonates with you, subscribe, leave a like, and enjoy watching. Imagine two people sitting in a coffee shop. One sees spilled coffee and thinks, "That's annoying," and moves on. The other immediately starts analyzing. Why did it spill? Was it my fault? What could have prevented it? How does this change my morning? What if it happens again? A high IQ brain doesn't just notice complexity, it actively seeks it. Research shows that people with higher intelligence often have increased neural connectivity in regions tied to information processing and integration. Their brains are, in a sense, always online, analyzing, predicting, inferring, even when they're not consciously trying. That's why someone highly intelligent might drift into deep thought while brushing their teeth, replay a stranger's tone hours after a conversation, or build internal models of events even when there's no obvious problem to solve. This isn't weakness, it's simply how their cognitive architecture works. A high IQ is consistently linked to the Big Five trait openness to experience, and this relationship is one of the most robust personality intelligence correlations in psychology. Large studies show that openness has a small but reliable connection to overall intelligence, about R equals 0.20. That may sound technical, but it simply means that people who are more open-minded and curious tend to score higher on IQ tests. What's more interesting is where this connection is strongest. It's not in raw problem-solving speed, but in knowledge-based intelligence like vocabulary, general understanding, and learned concepts. In other words, openness doesn't just help you think, it makes you want to learn. And over time, that constant curiosity quietly builds intelligence. The most widely accepted explanation comes from investment theory, Cattell-Ackerman, which proposes that people high in openness are more motivated to engage with ideas, abstract problems, art, philosophy, and intellectual exploration. Over time, this repeated cognitive engagement invests fluid intelligence into knowledge acquisition. In other words, openness drives people to seek complex mental stimulation, and that stimulation compounds into measurable intellectual growth. But more thinking doesn't always lead to better outcomes. Research on decision-making shows that beyond a certain point, higher IQ doesn't improve judgment. Raw analytical power increases, but emotional and cognitive biases remain. Overanalysis, doubt, and prediction errors don't disappear just because someone is intelligent. You can be excellent at thinking and still struggle to know when to stop. High IQ minds tend to respond to ambiguity by digging deeper rather than accepting uncertainty. Two people overhear part of a conversation at a party. One briefly wonders what it meant and lets it go. The other mentally maps possible interpretations, simulates reactions, and runs probability estimates on every scenario. This isn't just imagination, it's cognitive drive, the internal pressure to peel back layers of meaning. People with higher intelligence also score strongly on something called need for cognition. They genuinely enjoy effortful thinking, but that same trait makes them less satisfied with quick answers and more prone to overthinking. The brain keeps asking for more information even when there's no real payoff. Over time, this creates internal loops, The mind revisits the same thoughts again and again, not because something new is emerging, but because it expects deeper insight that never quite arrives. It's like debugging code. Instead of stepping away, the high IQ brain zooms in on possible causes, reruns mental simulations, imagines alternative paths, and rechecks assumptions. Not necessarily because it solves the problem better, but because the mind is wired to search for hidden patterns. This pattern detection system is fantastic for learning, but it's also excellent at chasing illusions of meaning. Another defining feature is anticipation. High IQ brains constantly simulate future possibilities. They live inside internal models of reality, running prediction after prediction. This aligns with predictive processing theory, the idea that the brain is fundamentally a prediction machine. When that system runs fast, it brings advantages. You see patterns others miss. You adapt quickly. You think several steps ahead. But there's a cost. You spend much of your time outside the present moment. Social situations reveal this clearly. You're at a meetup. Someone makes an ambiguous comment. Instead of taking it at face value, your mind immediately asks, was that a micro-insult? What was their tone? Does this imply something about me? What should I have said? How would it go if I replayed the moment? Meanwhile, everyone else has already moved on. The moment ends, but the thinking doesn't. This isn't emotional fragility, it's analysis bias, the unconscious overuse of intelligence to interpret social complexity. High intelligence doesn't reduce emotional sensitivity, it changes its form. Intelligent minds don't feel less, they interpret more. Many high IQ individuals also report feeling out of sync with others, not because they're fundamentally different, but because their internal speed is different. Studies on gifted adults show that processing speed differences and a preference for depth over small talk often lead to social misalignment. It's like watching a movie everyone else enjoys at face value while your mind keeps analyzing symbolism, narrative structure, subtext, and metaphors. You're tuned to a different frequency. So what does high IQ really feel like? It often means a brain that never fully turns off, constant prediction and pattern testing, a preference for depth over simplicity, mental loops triggered by ambiguity, internal stories that move faster than external reality. But here's the hopeful truth. High IQ isn't a flaw. It's a cognitive style. It comes with strengths and with predictable psychological challenges. If your mind thinks more than most, the goal isn't to stop thinking. That's unrealistic. The goal is to channel thinking into clarity instead of rumination. What helps is giving thoughts structure rather than letting them roam freely. Asking yourself what question you're actually trying to answer, what information you truly have, and what simply cannot be known right now turns free-floating mental noise into directed analysis. It also helps to put boundaries on thinking. Deliberate reflection is powerful. Endless reflection isn't. Research shows that limiting thinking sessions improves decision quality. Without limits, ideas just circle endlessly without landing. Externalizing thoughts makes a huge difference too. Writing, speaking, drawing, or mapping ideas pulls them out of your head. Once thoughts exist outside your mind, they lose their gravitational pull and internal pressure eases. Grounding practices matter as well. Mindfulness isn't about silencing thought, it's about anchoring awareness in the present. Studies show this reduces looping and increases cognitive flexibility. And finally, action is essential. Thinking predicts reality, action tests it. When analysis is paired with movement, uncertainty drops and insight turns into progress. High IQ doesn't mean a quiet mind. It means a busy workshop, constantly generating, evaluating, testing, and adjusting ideas. That's why high IQ thinkers often feel misunderstood. Think before acting, live more in pattern space than moment space, and carry internal drives most people never notice. None of this is weakness. It's a blueprint, not a burden. And once you understand these tendencies, you stop fighting your mind and start using it intentionally. There's one more layer most people overlook. High IQ rarely exists on its own. It usually comes paired with a personality trait called openness to experience. Openness describes how curious, imaginative, abstract, and mentally exploratory someone is. It's associated with deep thinking, creativity, philosophical curiosity, pattern seeking, and a preference for ideas over routine. Large studies consistently show that openness is the personality trait most strongly linked to intelligence. High IQ people aren't just better at solving problems, they're wired to explore ideas. They don't just want answers, they want understanding. Two people read the same article. One thinks, interesting, and moves on. The other wonders what it implies long-term, how it connects to existing knowledge, what assumptions the author is making, and what would happen if the idea were taken to its extreme. That second person isn't being difficult. That's openness at work. Their mind doesn't stop at surface meaning. It automatically goes deeper. This is why high IQ individuals are often drawn to psychology, philosophy, systems thinking, abstract conversation, creative fields, and theories about reality, consciousness, or society. Not because they're trying to appear smart, but because their nervous system finds novel complexity rewarding. Their brain is literally stimulated by new ideas. And when you finally understand that, everything starts to make sense.